everyone. I hope today finds you doing well. I'm Marianne, just in case you forgot who I was, and I'm your instructor for public sociology. I wanted to check in with you tonight. It's actually Sunday evening, September 13th, I believe, somewhere in the middle of September. And we're headed into week 4 of our class. And it's been kind of a crazy week for people. It's been kind of a hard week for people here in Chico and in the North Valley. And I know it's been really hard for a lot of you for various reasons. And so I've heard from a lot of you this week, and I wanted to reach out and just say, gosh, I hope you're doing okay wherever you are. And I hope that you're getting through this. It feels, I have to tell you, I'm gonna walk into here just for a second and say I also teach sociology of human stress, and so oftentimes my classes kind of run over a little bit because the topics run over a little bit because it's hard just to say I'm going to take that hat off today and I'm not going to get back to it. And so in my sociology of human stress class, I check in a lot with my students, especially when we're in class, when we're face to face, and ask them how they're doing. Because I can see them face to face, on semesters I do that. And and I can see when people are distressed, and I can see when kind of just life is getting out of control. But that's hard to do in this venue, and yet I know from the emails that I've been receiving, from the Zoom calls I've been having with people, that y'all are having kind of a rough time right now. It feels really hopeless and helpless in our world right now. Someone mentioned to me today that this is the 6-month mark since California, or actually since Chico State went into COVID mode, and we, went home 6 months ago today, and thinking at the time, our provost said, plan that you won't be in your offices for 2 months. And we all said, what are you talking about? We're not going to be in our offices for 2 months. These are our offices. This is where we work. How can you just send us home? How can we not walk into our classrooms? And we could have never imagined that it was going to be 6 months, but 6 months is today. And so we have this I'm hearing from people, I'm feeling that, we're having this kind of hopeless, helpless, when will this ever end thing with COVID-19. And then we are exacerbating it in California, Oregon, and Washington right now. I'm sitting here in Northern California in Chico, and for about 3-4 weeks now almost, we have been hit with wildfires. And we have countless wildfires all around us. And we are totally safe here in Chico, by the way. No problem here. But we have mountains on either side of us, and they have some of the largest wildfires that we've ever seen in our state. And so many wildfires. Many people have been displaced this week through evacuations. Many people have lost their homes this week. And I know many of you, I've talked to many of you who've said you've lost power this week because the Pacific Gas and Electric has had public safety shutoffs. And so I know I've talked to a lot of you who've had power shutoffs this week, had life disrupted, had to evacuate, were worried about your home, worried about your family and friends. And so it's a hard time in our world right now. We have been inundated with smoke all up and down California. Today Chico had, today and yesterday actually, we've just had the worst smoke I think I've ever seen in my life. Our air quality index got to over 600 both days. And so it's been a really hard time. So I wanted to check in with you. I want you all to know that I am thinking about you, that I am worried about you, and that I hope you're all doing well. With that being said, it's kind of interesting because to me everything is sociology, and so when we're sitting here thinking about kind of this what's happening in the world right now, I really look at it from a sociological perspective, and I say, how does sociology help me, really make sense of the world? And so, when we're thinking about what's happening right now with these two major disasters that are happening with COVID-19 and with the wildfires in California, it's it's really easy to step into that emotionally and get overwhelmed. But as a sociologist, we need to stand back and say, right, we can right, eat a few too many brownies every once in a while and say, whew, today's a tough day. But we also have to sit back and say, okay, what is going on here from a sociological perspective? What does this mean for people? And, how are people dealing with this? How are they coping with this? And so, when we're thinking about natural disasters, this class is really relevant right now because we're in the middle of some of the biggest natural disasters that have been happening. Um, and so, we have work to do essentially. And we have work to do by looking around us and saying, what the heck is going on with the world and what can we learn from it and how do we change it in the future? By the way, I got a lot of responses. I was reading a lot of responses in the past few days when I asked you in a journal what is the most important thing that you saw about doing sociological research about natural disasters, and I was really excited to see that that a lot of you said things like to prevent to mitigate the negative outcomes of natural disasters. A few of you said, maybe if we knew what caused these disasters, we could stop them. But an overwhelming majority of people said, that you wanted to do, or that research was important because you wanted to be able to help people more effectively after the disaster happened. And so I thought that was really cool. All of the responses are absolutely relevant. And I'll tell you from my history doing disaster research, all of those things are so important. So it's kind of a trick question asking you what's the most important, because really all of those things and more are important about doing sociological research on natural disasters. This week, we're going to venture out a little bit more into our research project. And so this research project really is a 3-part research project where you're going to be researching a topic, right? And then you're going to be disseminating that information or, relaying that information to the general public in 3 different ways. The first way is going to be this letter to the editor. The second way is going to be a little bit more in depth, and it's going to be an opinion editorial piece or an op-ed piece. And then the third thing is going to be the video at the end of the semester. And so your culminating event is producing that video through Adobe Spark at the end of the semester. And so, you gave me your topic a couple weeks ago, and then last week you started working with peer reviews. And so this week we're going to really be looking at a couple things here. Let me just go through this. So we're going to be looking at theoretical approaches this week to understanding sociology of disasters. So, how we perceive disasters and how people respond to disasters and those types of things, the social construction of disaster, talking about social vulnerability a little bit, which we're going to explore a lot, I think in 2 weeks, maybe next week though, and then environmental inequity. And so we're going to be talking about those in your textbook, and then you are going to be reflecting on the peer reviews that you completed last week, which I know there was some stress for some of you. You were like, is my grade going to be dependent on what other people do or think about my paper? And no, it's not. I do not believe in having someone else's work reflect your grade. And so whatever your work you turn in, that's what you're going to be graded on. And so it's all good. I promise it's all good. So you're going to do a reflection on your peer reviews this week. You're going to start an annotated bibliography this week that really is doing more research on your research topic. And then we're going to be really kind of getting a better understanding of what a letter to the editor is. And so that's where we're at this week. We're going to be looking at those 3 things. And so let's click through the website, the Blackboard Learn page, so that you can see exactly what we're doing this week. So I have quite a few little videos, and then quite a few little reading things that I want you to look at. And the last three things on this list, how to submit a letter to the editor, those are just different newspapers. And so they're guidelines. So those aren't things you really are going to read. Those are just kind of the guidelines that you go through for each paper. And then also, you obviously need to read chapter 4 of disasters, and then go to how to write a letter to the editor or an opinion editorial. Read how to write a successful letter to the editor. And then I want you to go out and start maybe doing some research on your own and finding a newspaper or a magazine or something that takes letters to the editor or a letter to the publisher, and see what their guidelines are for submitting a letter to the editor. And so kind of get those things in your brain, right? Starting those things. So most letters to the editor are between 150 to 250 words. They're usually very brief, to the point. Get in, get out, get done, is what it comes down to. And then, so kind of do some exploring. And so I've linked just some of our local newspapers around here if you want to go and see those. But if you have another newspaper in mind or magazine in mind, you are welcome to submit there. We're not doing that this week, right? We're not actually submitting this week. This week, I want you to be planning to submit for next week, right? And then I want you to watch a few things. Obviously, you need to watch this lecture, right? Watch this lecture. And then also, I was, as I was reading this week's chapter, I was thinking about this, and I was like, oh my gosh, some of this is really familiar to me. That was in this video that I absolutely love. One of my favorite TED Talk speakers is a woman named Margaret Heffernan, and she's got, I think, 3 videos on TED Talks, and one of my favorite ones is willful blindness. And so I want you to go out and find the video Willful Blindness, and then go back and read the chapter, because we oftentimes ask ourselves, how did this happen, right? What happened here? How did it happen? Why didn't anyone say anything? We knew this was happening, right? And Margaret Heffernan really talks about this concept of willful blindness, which the author, Catherine Tierney, talks about in chapter 4. She calls it something different. See if you can figure out what she calls it. But she talks about the exact same blindness that we have to global warming or global climate change, that impacts, that influences why we don't act on these things to make a change. And then I want you to also watch a couple really short videos, but I was sitting here thinking, I really want them to do, to read this, watch this, And so really short videos that honestly I was laughing about when I was watching them. But writing a letter to the editor is an art, and it is also cookbook, right? That it's A plus B plus C. And so these 2 videos were really into that. And so go out and watch those. They're maybe, 3 or 4 minutes long each. They're really short. And then you have some homework for this week. You have your quiz on your chapter 4. And then I want you to do a reflection on your research, on your peer review. And then also do your annotated bibliography. So let's talk about the annotated bibliography really quickly. So I'm going to give you an example of your annotated bibliography of what it should look like. And so this is going to be due Friday, September 18th at 11:59 p.m. And this is to really start exploring your research topic. And so, you are not just going to read 3 things about your research topic. You're going to read hopefully 10 or 15 things. And allow yourself to kind of be asking these questions. Research actually doesn't answer the questions for you. That's not what answers the questions. Usually I have more questions after I do a literature review, which is just a compilation of annotated bibliographies. I have more questions, and I go, I need to answer this. I've got this question because all these different people were saying all these things, and I need to answer this question now. And so how am I going to answer this question? And so this annotated bibliography you probably should be looking at 10 to 15 different sources and then picking the 3 that you find most relevant and then doing an annotated bibliography of them. And so you're going to start exploring your topic. You're going to choose 3 of those sources to summarize in an annotated bibliography form. And I know you all have done annotated bibliographies for other professors, and I know that. But you know, I want you to be thinking about my questions when you are writing your annotated bibliography. And that is, right, so look at this and think about this, you know, like what is the purpose of this annotated bibliography? And it is really, it's an alphabetized compilation of sources used in research with expanded descriptions of the source. And so you're going to be looking at, okay, what should be in your annotated bibliography? And this should all be within like 100 words or less, right? An explanation of the main purpose and scope of the cited work, a brief description of the work's format and content, theoretical basis and currency of the author's argument, author's intellectual academic credentials. So what makes this person the expert to be able to write this article? That's the question, right? Or book or whatever it is. The work's intended audience. So who are they writing this paper for? Is it for the average person or is it for an academic audience? The value and significance of the work as it contributes to the subject under consideration, so your topic, and then possible shortcomings or bias in the work, and then any significant special features of the work, like a glossary, appendix, particularly good index, things like that, and then your own brief impression of the work. So this is like really, really small, but essentially when you're writing research papers, you need to be able to, the worst thing that you can do in writing research papers is be like, oh, I've got 50 articles, right? 50 articles that I'm going to draw from. And then you compile them all and then you put them away in your computer and you see this list. You come back to it 3 weeks later and you're like, I don't know what was in any of these articles. I need to go back and reread them. Or if you do an annotated bibliography of your articles that you find relevant for your research, you're not going to have to go back and reread them just to see what's in them, right? You go back to reread them to summarize them better. But you'll be able to see like, oh, this one said this, that one said that. And okay, now I've got an idea and I can just move on. And so that's what an annotated bibliography is for, is to kind of get this, idea of what's in your paper. It also gives you a really good summary of kind of the research that's out there. And so you're going to choose 3 sources to do an annotated bibliography for. And then you're going to do a reflection on your journal this week. And that is, I really want, so you do not have to revise your paper based on your reviewer's comments. That actually was not the purpose of this one assignment. The purpose was to get other people to start doing reviews, right? I wanted this review was not for you to make changes. This review is for other people to start to learn the review process. And so, but with that, now I want you to go back, and I've already had a couple people email and be like, I do not agree with what they said about my paper. I'm like, that's fine. You don't have to agree. I'm going to tell you a little secret here. So, when you go and you get a graduate degree, the biggest difference between an undergraduate degree and a graduate degree is that you are supposed to be producing original research, right, that you will then defend, right? So you'll do your master's thesis defense or your dissertation defense, meaning that you're going to write this wonderful, beautiful book or article or whatever it is, and then you're going to take it to a group of you'll have your master's thesis or your dissertation chair, and they'll have been working with you tirelessly for months and years likely, and you'll come up with a great paper, right? They'll have looked at it 1,000 times, not kidding. And then you'll all agree, this is perfect, this is fantastic, and then you take it in front of a group of professors that you have chosen to be on and have agreed to be on your committee, and you get to defend your work, right? Well, you get to come up and say, this is what I did, this is how I did it, these are my findings. And these people should be experts in your field, and they'll ask you questions, and you will have to defend yourself. You'll have to say, well, I came up with this conclusion. And they'll say, that doesn't make sense to us. Why did you come up with that conclusion? And you'll say, well, right, A, B, C, and D equals E over here. And that's my defense. And if you make it logical and you make it right, that's a defense. So every revision that someone gives you, I want you to remember this, every revision that someone gives you, you don't necessarily have to take. Sometimes it's great, right? But other times it's not. Other times you're like, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. That's not where I was going. This doesn't make sense. Sometimes it's out of the scope of your paper. I've had people say to me before, why didn't you look at, race when you were talking about wildfires in in Paradise, California? And I go, well, right, honestly, it was beyond the scope of this problem, of this paper. And so you've just said, I didn't need to do it, right? Because of whatever factor, other people are looking at that. It was beyond the scope of my paper. So, right, so when you're thinking about this review process, right, I want you to be looking at a couple things. Number one, you don't have to agree with what they said, and you don't have to make any revisions on what they said. I'm actually not going to look at your papers again after this one assignment for this first assignment. This was to get people starting the review process. It wasn't to get you to revise your paper. But I do want you to think about your paper and think about what people said about your review, okay, about your paper. And why I had you do two different people was because I wanted to see if they picked up on patterns. So I want you to, number one, in this review, tell me what was your initial impression of the reviews that you received from your classmates? Did you agree? Did you disagree? Did you find it helpful? Were there improvements that you went, oh, wow, I can't believe that. And yes, that's wonderful. What was your overall impression of it? Second, did you notice any patterns or similarities in the comments or suggestions for revisions, either in the same paper? So did you keep making the same mistake over and over and over again, right? In the same paper, and someone caught that every time? Or did you see similarities, like both reviewers caught problems and you go, I didn't realize I had that problem. It might need to be something I look at. So did you notice any patterns or similarities? And then what do you agree with in the reviews and what might you disagree with in the reviews? If you disagree with some of the suggestions, and I'm going to bet that most everyone has something that they disagree with in what their reviewers said, right? And so I want you to, this is where you come in the defense of this, right? Explain why you disagree with this and defend your answer, right? For example, reviewer number one commented that I should change the order of sentences X and Y. I disagree with this suggestion because I spoke about concept Y previously as the most important aspect of the cause of climate change. So I believe it's appropriate to speak about concept X first in this section, right? That's a defense. That's a defense of, what this is. You only have to do that twice, and so you should be pretty good. But you need to do that twice and then wrap it up, right? But I want you to be able to defend your work. And then finally, how would you use the suggestions from your reviewers to inform your writing in the future? And then again, in essay form, right? Intro. This is what I'm doing. I'm analyzing the reviews that people gave me. Here's what they talked about, and then do the conclusion on that. And then wrap it up. Okay. That's this week. I really want you to be thinking about your writing. I really want you to be thinking about how you can improve your writing. And I want you to be really thinking about the topics that you're going to be exploring for the next few weeks. Okay. Did I miss anything? I don't know if I missed anything or not. I will not be holding office hours tomorrow. And they will be late on Tuesday. And so I apologize. So Monday, I need to cancel my office hours. Tuesday, I will have later office hours. And so I will reschedule them with you, and I'll send out an email for everyone. I think that's about it. I really hope you all are doing well. I know this is a really tough time, and I really wish I could be with you all face-to-face and having these great discussions face-to-face. But I don't. We can't. And school is going better for my kids, by the way, just as an FYI. We're surviving. It's all good. I hope you all are doing well, and I'll see you soon.